Good evening, councillors, officers and members of the public. Welcome to the 7th of June 2023 Ordinary Meeting of Council. I'll now open the meeting with the first item on this evening's agenda, which is the reading of the prayer. Almighty God, be with us as we work for the people of the Shire of Moorabool. Grant us wisdom that we may care for the Shire as true stewards of your creation. May we be aware of the great responsibilities placed upon us. Help us to be just in all our dealings, and may our work prosper for the good of all. Amen. Item 2, I'll now read the Acknowledgement of Country. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and the Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today. In accordance with the Moorabool Shire's Council's governance rules, the Council will be recording and live streaming this meeting. The Moorabool News and Star Weekly have also been granted permission to record this meeting. I'm pleased to advise that all councillors, I can confirm that all councillors are in attendance this evening and there are no apologies for this meeting. Item number 6 is the confirmation of minutes. Councillors, we have minutes from the 3rd of May 2023 Ordinary Meeting of Council and the 10th of May 2023 Special Meeting of Council and the 17th of May 2023 Special Meeting of Council to be confirmed. Do I have a councillor to move the minutes are confirmed? Move Councillor Minari. Do I councillor second? Councillor Berry. I will now put the motion to a vote. All in favour? I declare the motion carried. Councillors, item 7 is disclosure of conflicts of interest. Councillors, does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare in tonight's meeting? No, thank you. We'll move to the next agenda item. Item number 8 is public question time. Councillors, we have received one question from a member of the public to be considered at this meeting. This question is from Mr John Kowalski and the response will be read by Mr Ewan Nevitt.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The question is, can Council please provide an update on implementing speed reduction signage on Blackwood Road, Simpson Street, near Mill Park for signs ordered 2 months ago? The response is the reduction in speed limit along Simpson Street, Blackwood Street has been approved by Vic Roads and the replacement signage has been ordered and received by Council. The signs are scheduled to be installed by mid-July.
Thank you, Mr Nevitt. Councillors, item 9 is petitions, and as there are no petitions for this meeting, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is item 10, presentations and deputation. Councillors, we have several members of the public registered to speak at this evening's meeting across the items on the agenda. Each speaker will be invited to address the Council at the commencement of the item in question. Item 11 is the Chief Executive Officer report, and 11.1 is the first report is sale of land, 8 Bond Street, Mattingley. Councillors, there's no registered speakers to this item and you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding the report. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation? Councillor Edwards. Councillor Dudzik. Any dissent? All in favour? Motion carried. Item 11.2 is the WRISC, which is a Women's Resource Information and Support Centre Family Violence Support Rent Reduction Request. Again, there's no registered speakers. Councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding this item. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation? Councillor Tatchell.
Question, Mr Mayor, if I can, please.
Yep. Councillor Sullivan, question.
The 70%, I looked in the information, the attachment, couldn't quite see where the 70% reduction sort of came from, like what policy we used to assess that, so someone could help me on that regard. And also, the last time that these rents were struck was 2019. There's just been an application of the March quarter consumer index, and I'm just asking, do we do that, or do we perhaps get an updated market valuation?
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Mr CEO.
Could be, rather.
Through the Chair, I'll have to defer to Kate for the Governance Officer in relation to the 70%. Oh, sorry, to Angela regarding the 70%.
Through the Chair, the 70% reduction is what was previously awarded to RISC in 2019. So they have requested the same reduction. So we've assessed them against that.
Supplementary question.
Yes.
So basically, it's just done as they come along. We don't have a policy or something that directs what the percentage in reduction is or not.
Yeah, so through the chair, no, not at this stage. All we have is what we've got is in relation to peppercorn rent, a reduced rent or full rent.
Right.
So we don't have that itemised, no.
I would suggest going forward, it might be timely to actually have some policy around this so that it gives some guidance. Otherwise, it's just a bit ad hoc then, isn't it?
Absolutely, and through the chair, that's on our list to do as well.
Very good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
The second part of your question, Councillor Sullivan, was the rent valuation.
Yeah, the second part of the question was what seems to have happened. We've taken the 2019 figure and just applied the, what does it say, the quarter consumer price index, all groups Melbourne. And what I'm saying is, do we or should we actually get the current market value so we're applying it equally and fairly?
So yeah, through the chair, we haven't undertaken that as yet for Darley, so we will be doing that for all of the sites.
Thank you.
Happy to
Councillor Sullivan.
second. Happy to second the motion.
The motion's been moved by Councillor Tatchell, seconded by Councillor Dudzik. All in favour? I declare the motion carried. Item number 11.3, the next report is the adoption of the governance frameworks and policies. Councillors, again, you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding the report. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation?
Mr Mayor, I would move the recommendation with an amendment. I would refer you to page 82 of the attachments, and it refers to one of our neighbouring councillors. Neighbouring says there needs to be a councillor at the Hepburn Shire Council. I think that when you cut and paste, you want to actually do a bit more proofreading.
So the motion's been moved by Councillor Sullivan with one amendment. Seconded by Councillor Berry. Councillors, all in favour? No dissent? I declare the motion carried. Councillors, item 12 is the Community Planning and Development Reports, and the first report is item 12.1, which is the development of 6 light poles, earthworks, extension of operating hours in association with existing use at the motor race at 569 Yankee Flat Road, Buninyong. And councillors, we have several speakers on this item, and the first speaker is joining us online.
Ms Freckleton doesn't seem to be online at the moment.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll move to the second registered speaker, which is Miss Jane Robson. Jane, feel free to take the chair and press the button to turn your microphone on. Miss Robson, you do have the floor for 3 minutes, after which councillors may choose to ask you questions. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, my name is Jane and I live in close proximity to Red Line Raceway. I have lived there for over 40 years and our home predates the Red Line by over 80 years. So I'm well versed in the activities conducted at Red Line. I represent a number of local residents that object to the current planning proposal lodged by Red Line. I would like to state that we object to all the items on the planning permit application and request that none are allowed to proceed. On the first item of the development of 6 light towers and associated earthworks, the lights already on site being used are more than adequate for purpose, and to imply there's any safety issue is ridiculous. More lights are not needed. Additional lights will only cause more problems for the residents and further damage the amenity of the area. The current lights are already intrusive to neighbours, are a safety issue for road users and upset stock, poultry and native fauna in the area. Additional lighting or longer operating hours will only intensify these problems. As to the associated earthworks, it has been well documented that there have already been massive earthworks completed at Red Line Raceway without a permit. Is this just another attempt to get another retrospective permit? This has become a very obvious set pattern of behaviour by the Belmont Speedway Drivers Club. Please also note that these earthworks went on over the strictest COVID lockdown periods, and in February 2021, as council could not legally send out officers to the site, they had to notify the police of the activity. No further earthworks should be allowed until this breach has been resolved. The extension of operating hours of the light towers for past 11 p.m. curfew with a maximum of 6 extensions per season is totally unacceptable to the residents. This is an obvious attempt to bypass the 11 p.m. curfew on the track lights and to try and change the usage of the site further. The lower level of lighting in both the pit area and other locations already on site is sufficient for patron safety at race conclusion. Also, all of the vehicles leaving the track are fitted with headlights that are deemed safe for operation on public roads at high speed, so are more than adequate for departing the racetrack. The permit the current track lights operate under has conditions that without written permission of the responsible authority, the lights shall not operate beyond 11 p.m. Nothing has changed to cause this condition to be altered. The 11 p.m. curfew is both generous and well researched. This curfew was advised by the EPA. At this time, they did extensive noise testing at residences during night race meetings and found that racing after 11 p.m. was unacceptable. All the residents in the area know from past experience that Redline have breached this curfew many, many times and raced well past 11 p.m. If the lights are allowed to stay on, then racing and noise will continue if they have any delays in their program. Any assurances by the club that this won't happen have been proven wrong time and time again. I would like to point out that usually Redline only have 6 night meetings per year or per season, so they are in fact asking for an extension on hours for all of their night meetings. As suggested before, if Redline really has a problem with the 11 p.m. curfew, it is totally within their own power to solve it. All they need to do is start earlier, with a time buffer for any delays during their meeting. It is a much better and logical option to start earlier rather than finish later and negatively impact the many local residents in the area late at night. We, the residents, would have no problem with them starting earlier. So to sum up, we, the local residents impacted by the operations at Redline, oppose most strongly all the aspects of this planning application and ask for it to be rejected. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms Robson. Councillors, do you have any questions for Ms Robson? Councillor Berry.
Yes.
Mr Mayor. Jane or Ms Robertson?
Yes, no, Jane's fine.
Thank you. With the events that they hold currently, are they during the week at any time, or is it just on the weekend?
They're usually on the weekends. Sometimes they do other stuff on a Sunday, but it's usually on a Saturday.
Usually a Saturday, but can be a Sunday?
Can be a Sunday sometimes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Councillors, any other questions for Ms Robson? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Councillors, I'll invite our next registered speaker, which is Ms Lynn McLennan. Thank you very much, Ms McLennan. Again, press the button. You have the floor for 3 minutes, after which councillors may choose to ask you some questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's very nice to be back here, and I just note that I was working at the Mirrabooka Council when a very young Councillor Tom Sullivan was elected to council for the first time. He's still very young.
And you recognised him.
Yes. And it was...
Ms McLennan can have 4 minutes.
Thank you. I do live in the area in Wirianda Drive, and I am an objector, together with my husband. And like other people, I've lived there for 30 years or more. I don't have any objection to the Speedway per se. And like others who bought into the area at that time on the advice of the then Buninyong Council, which is a successor, this council is a successor-in-law for that part of the Shire, we were advised that the Speedway, this is how it operated. We had a 173 agreement, and we went, oh no, that's fine, you know, and it was fine most of the time. To start with, then, of course, many years later, that Section 173 matter was proven to be untrue because it had never been signed. So just in case there's anyone thinking it's not in my backyard stuff, it's not. We went in there thinking this is the situation, it wasn't. We understand the permit that operates. We do object to the way in which the Speedway has been operated, and I think that's a significant issue for your decision tonight. There have been numerous breaches of various laws and regulations over the years. Illegal earthworks, that's documented, illegal overnight camping on multiple occasions, breaches of the current permit for the light operating hours. So we don't have any confidence that whatever conditions you put on any permit that you grant tonight, that the Speedway Club will actually adhere to the conditions of the permit. And we also recognise that Council has limited resources for planning enforcement. You can't be everywhere in the Shire at once, as does Central Highlands Water, as does the EPA, and I should note that I'm currently a director on the board of Central Highlands Water. So, you know, particularly our request is that the extension of operating hours in an emergency is refused because there is a simple solution. The club could start its races earlier. It doesn't start them until about 3 p.m. There's residents used to have the daytime meetings, and we didn't have this issue at night time and this intrusion of residential meeting. I don't know why you want people driving home at midnight anyway. So just based on previous experience, residents are of the opinion that this provision to give 6 emergency, and we don't know what an emergency is, would be interpreted by the club as permission to extend the lighting hours up to 6 times a year, which would be a serious imposition on our amenity. And I'd just also ask the council to consider the high risk, if permission is granted, of the Speedway Club not adhering to the proposed conditions of the various permits, because that is in fact what they have done. So really not objecting to the Speedway per se, and we understand it's got a pre-existing ute right, but just really this is a high risk because the operation of it has not, it's not been done in an orderly and consistent and legal fashion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms McLennan. Councillors, any questions for Ms McLennan? No? Thank you very much. Our next registered speaker is Mr Lachlan McDonald. Thank you very much, Lachlan. Again, you do have the floor for 3 minutes, after which councillors may ask you questions if they so desire. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if any questions afterwards, Lockie is fine.
Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank Council for organising the mediation meeting. I believe it was March the 10th. It's referred to in the agenda. One item that has not been fulfilled is the President of the Speedway Club agreed to send me information on the noise measurement requirements of the Speedway Association in general. This has not occurred. I haven't been able to look at it and find out A, what the level is, and secondly, what measures the Speedline themselves are taking to make sure they do comply with the requirements they must meet. So I asked for an extension before you passed anything and requested this information be provided as committed. Secondly, the application I find very unusual when they use the emergency for 6 times. I mean, I think most people here, when you hear the word emergency, this is not normal. It's an unusual event, and we've had at least one death at Redline Raceway. We have no objection to lights being on for as long as required by whatever the emergency services require. But I think Redline have a history of perhaps, if we think of cutting a slice of salami, they like to keep cutting and cutting and cutting, and next minute you find the whole thing's gone. As the previous 2 speakers have said, the easiest way to solve the problem of needing the extra lights on is to start early. There is absolutely no reason why the meetings can't start earlier. They own the racetrack, it's vacant all the time, they're not dependent on anyone leaving before they start. And I think the only reason they don't like holding day meetings is they find it hard to get the crowds. They much prefer the night meetings, and of course the residents suffer as a result. 2 other things if I could bring up very quickly. Firstly, for those who don't know, Redline Raceway is situated right on the border between Buninyong and Moorabool, basically. And literally, if I walk the distance from this desk to that back wall, from the front gate of Redline Raceway, I would be in Mount Helen, Ballarat Council's territory. Could I request that Ballarat Council be involved? Because I'd say most people affected by the noise around Redline live in Ballarat. I've happened to walk from Midvale to Buninyong and back, down past the Bird Park, back along Geelong Road, and when the night meetings are on, it is amazing the pockets of noise you hear. And a lot of people over the years have complained to me with young children, particularly Sunday night meetings, that they can't get their children to sleep. 11 o'clock midnight is too late. And the noise you get, for anyone who lives in the country, the noise of cars crashing is the thing we dread most. Nice, quiet night, bang, and you run out expecting to find, hopefully everyone okay, but who knows what you'll find, as you only have to see by looking in the newspaper. So it's not a pleasant noise. It's not like we're hearing lovely opera singing or something like that. And secondly, I have concerns about the actual area of Redline. Over the years, they put up a very extensive fence right around with basically one gateway at the start, and cars come in with fuel, lots of tyres. If one of those cars and trailers caught fire and blocked the entrance and exit, what happens? We've got all these people caught. If a bushfire comes through from the forest nearby and the grasslands nearby, is there any plan for emergency evacuation to get people out? I request that Council go and have a look at the situation and contact Redline, and before you grant any permits, have a look at if they have, safety plan and plan for emergency exit. And that's probably the main point I'd like to bring up.
Thank you very much, Mr Warner. Again, councillors, do you have any questions for Mr Warner? Councillor Tatchell.
Yeah, thanks, Lockie. Great name, I reckon. Yeah, there's, in 3 discussions tonight, it said that if they start earlier at 3 o'clock, that would alleviate a lot of the issues. The actual item in front of us tonight, the planning item, is purely about the lights, and with the exception of an extension of time, basically what we're agreeing to tonight is earthworks and lights. So the question would be, even if they started at 3 o'clock, based on how long the Speedway goes for, and I have to say I've never been to the Speedway, so I've been to the place, but I've never actually been to a Speedway race. They would still need lights anyway. So in terms of the application that we have to deal with here, is it fair to say that putting all those things in one box, the box that we've got to deal with, the box of toys we have, is purely about lights, earth moving and time? Is that, would you agree with that?
Well, Councillor Thatchell, thank you for the question. I would say they're related in that the application is to extend the period over which the lights operate. If we look at the question as to why they want to extend, I believe it's because they want to start later and try and push right up to have a race right towards the end. Now, if they were in a situation where, let's say, there was a football match or something, they could not get access to the track till, say, 6 or 7 o'clock, OK, there'd be a problem that they have a legitimate reason for asking for this extension. When that's not the case and they can start earlier, there is no reason for it to be extended.
Supplementary then. So just while we're on the subject then, I understand where you're coming from with that, Lawyer, but I suppose my question comes back to, even if they started at 3 o'clock, they would still need the upgrade of the lights, is that right?
No, I don't believe so. I think the other thing too, I didn't mention that, but a number of people over the years have turned from up Bunanyong and turned down Yankee Flat Road and been absolutely startled because they've driven along a quiet, not lit light, there's a road, there's no street lights, and all of a sudden they turn along and bang, they get these lights in the face, and it's very, very disconcerting. Also, when the traffic leaves late at night, when all the patrons leave, there's cars going everywhere, and that's another source of noise as the cars leave. I also serve alcohol on the premises as well, so I think there's all sorts of potentials for problem, and probably the earlier we can get people out from there, the better.
Yes, please.
Yes. So, and only to follow up on that, and I understand your concerns with respect to alcohol. In your time and time you've seen the Speedway out, do the police come there overnight or to when it's closing time and they're leaving? Is it well protected by the police, or is it?
I have to say no. Once again, I can't say I've been there when people are leaving. As I say, I do know they had one death, and I am concerned the number of cars leaving, and that it's something else perhaps council should address with Red Line as to how they look at ingress and egress of traffic.
Yeah. And just if I could finish, Mr.
Please.
And you do understand that because it's in the Maroochydore Shire, we can't put it in both shires. Yeah. I mean, we tried to do that with Hepburn before, but we scrapped that, did we? But ultimately, that's the issue that we have here. So we understand that the people in the rural living zone are in the Ballarat district. But the actual thing that we have in front of us, just so we're clear, is purely a planning issue in terms of...
It is, but if we look at, say, the Nile River, for example, it starts in one country and runs down through Egypt. Anything in it, they're currently building a big dam in top now, and Egypt is not very happy about this. Yeah. I think it's a similar situation, if you follow my metaphor, that, yes, it's in your shire just, but it does affect the downstream people in Ballarat, and I think some consideration should be given to taking their views into account as well, working with Shire of Ballarat as well.
Appreciate that, Lockie. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr McDonald. Councillor, any other questions for Mr McDonald?
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, councillors, is Mr Philip Warner. Mr Warner's online. Just connecting. And do we know if we've been able to get hold of Danielle Freckleton? No.
While we're waiting, can we ask a question?
Yep.
Of officers.
Please, Councillor Tatchell.
So I know that this was approved once before. I think it was back in 2009. And then I think there was some discussion about BCAT, and then there was some existing use capacity within this permit itself. So I suppose the question is all of that relevant to this site?
Mr Bazudnoud? Okay.
Do you want me to answer through the chair?
Yeah, just answer the please, Mr Mark, and then
Yeah,
we'll
so-
take the speaker.
Previous approval, particularly with the lights, there were 2 infield lights and 12 smaller light towers approved in that original approval. So this one is going to retain those 2 lights which were built and 4 additional lights. So it's very similar to what was previously approved on the site.
Thank you. Mr Warner?
Hello, yes. Sorry, Kim Dowling, I think, was intending to speak, so she's going to go get her.
I haven't got my document, but it's not open.
Her meeting session didn't open, so.
Thank you, Mr Warner. You have the floor. You have 3 minutes to address the councillors, after which they may choose to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Error. Yes. Okay. Thank you. I refer to pages 20 and 21 of the agenda. We commend your requirement that plans must be submitted before works commence. We note that Redline has a proven track record of commencing works without approval. We also note that residents and council need to see the details of the light poles and fittings before approval. We need the Lux diagrams showing the light spill. Unintended and negative impacts on the landscape need investigation. We're talking about towers that are 12 metres high. That's the equivalent of a 4-storey building, and that will be projecting light until 11 p.m. at night. Noise and light baffling are expensive but very critical to this process, and we need to see the specifics before council approve so that it might be scientifically investigated. It needs independent verification. Our original letter and documents contend that the sound levels should be limited to 65 decibels off-site. Redline are on record as saying they're aware of noise issues and would not race noisy vehicles. We suggest that should you permit a variation in this application, an acoustic limitation should be included, developed of course in consultation with your EPA and with ongoing independent monitoring. We also note that the EPA has endorsed the 12 p.m. curfew. Further, requesting the site plan after Redline have already completed significant earthworks again is rewarding bad behaviour. This cycle of act and inform afterwards really does need to stop. Regarding the 6 proposed light poles that might be left on till 11:59 p.m. in the event of an emergency, let's just be clear, good planning means they should schedule activity so they just don't run over time. They can do that. You don't schedule for 6 emergencies per year. This is a bold-faced attempt to run late. And the very item on your agenda commences with extension of operating hours. This is an extension of rights. Redline should engage in better planning and so that there are no overruns. We endorse Council's statement that no further fill be brought onto the land without relevant approvals and testing. Was the fill brought last time actually tested? Were fines imposed for flaunting council rules when this statement resulted in dust plumes and impacted into our waterways? Your council statement really just reiterates good council regulations. But we have good evidence that Redline does not play by council rules. Will fines be imposed for future breaches? We further commend your statement about infrastructure and drainage. We're critically worried about our environment and endorse the need for better septic and runoff management. This is a good thing. Patricia Ahmed indicated to us that 4,000 people attended the meeting she attended. And while she did note the significant noise levels, the larger impact of such a crowd on our environment has yet to be quantified, and it really does need to have some further investigation. In closing, I note we've yet to receive any correspondence from council addressing our other issues. And I suggest it would be appropriate to respond to our constructive criticism and commentary. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much. Now, just for my clarity, you're Miss Dowling, aren't you?
Yes, I am, Kim
You
Dowling.
are?
For some reason, I'm in your meeting, but it just didn't start filming.
No, thank you, Miss Dowling. Councillors, any questions for Miss Dowling? Councillor Tatchell?
Just want to clarify, you did say that the EPA endorsed this, is that right?
I believe there is the EPA have indicated that anything after 11 p.m. would be inappropriate. I believe, and the 65 decibels was also recorded in one of the documents we have. If you need, I can find that and send it through to you.
No, it's just on your sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
But when you made your presentation, you said...
I mentioned that the EPA had mentioned the 11 p.m. curfew.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I heard it as the EPA...
I'm sorry.
...had endorsed it, so... But that's okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tatchell. Any other questions for Miss Dowling, councillors? No. Now, Miss Dowling, is that Mr Warner with you?
Yes, he is.
Did Mr Warner want to add anything? I had him down as a registered speaker also.
No, I'm fine, actually. I think Kim's covered most of the issues that we're concerned about. Basically, we were hoping that you could impose some more restrictions on the permit as you vary it, specifically relating to sound.
Thank you very much, Ms Dowling and Mr Warner. Thank you.
Thank you.
We ended up with a speaker by proxy. Did the speaker just say that they were happy to have some amendments made in terms of the decibels, or putting a decibel limit?
Yeah.
Probably, is that what you said?
64.
Yes, I believe that we...
Hello. I just want to be clear, but I think what he requested was that he was happy with... There he is, he's back. Mr Warner.
Mr Warner?
He's on mute.
Ms Dowling, yeah, you're on mute. There you go.
We'd be very happy to have a decibel limit placed.
Is that a decibel limit in place?
So you're happy to have a decibel level in place?
A limit in place,
limit, yes.
So if monitoring equipment can be put on, say, one of the adjacent properties or several of them, and make sure that the output from the raceway is less than one of the figures the EPA had previously recommended was 64 decibels, then we'd be very happy, I think.
It obviously brings another question then, that if the EPA endorsed it, wouldn't they have already done that?
This goes back into history, I think, basically where the Redline people said, no, we only race reasonably quiet cars, and at the time it was true.
We don't have any independent monitoring in the current time. So the request was, if it is reasonable, and we're not trying to get in the way of people's business, we're just trying to limit the impact on the people who live around there. If 65 is considered reasonable, and you can go to an independent authority to get that advice, then why don't we just monitor and then we'll get out of your hair. If it doesn't go above that number, we've got no grounds to complain.
And also,
in terms of noise.
In previous discussions with the EPA, they've also said that higher noise levels during the day are acceptable. And a lot of our complaint is
at night.
The night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hang on just a moment, please. If I just have a question for Mr Bazudnad or Mark. I think it may have been Mr Warner earlier mentioned that at the mediation meeting, the club had committed to sending through the noise readings and they haven't been received. Can you confirm that, please?
So through the chair, I don't know if noise readings have been actually produced, but noise is not an issue for this particular application. It's to do with development of light towers, development of earthworks and that extension of ours. So there was no requirement to provide a noise report or for it to be assessed separately through EPA.
Thank you.
I think our hope was that, for example, if you are varying their permit, which you are, then perhaps migrating that permit to something that would be vaguely acceptable by modern standards would also be appropriate at the same time. Hence the request for a revisiting of things like sound.
Okay.
And given there's an extension of time, that sound impact becomes even more important.
Indeed.
Because we are talking approaching midnight.
Thank you very much, Mr Warner. Thank you, Ms Dowling. I now invite our next speakers. Matthew and Jane McConnell. Matthew and Jane with us? Okay, they're not with us. And our first registered speaker was Miss Danielle Freckleton. Have we been able to get hold of Danielle? No, we haven't. Okay. So, councillors, we have no further speakers. In your councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers before you... No worries. Councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding the report. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation?
I'm not moving. I have a question for officers.
Councillor Berry.
Thank you. Do these lights, when they get switched off at 11 o'clock or 11:59, are you aware whether they just dim off slowly or do they go off immediately?
So that level of detail is something that was actually requested as part of condition 1. So when we ask for like lux diagrams, we're making sure that light spills, so even at full strength, and it does shut down, that light does not emit beyond the property boundaries. So that was one of the prime requirements of condition 1, including light fittings, where they're positioned, and that lux level.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Tatchell.
I just want to clarify that noise reduction and noise isn't part of this application and can't be considered because it wasn't part of the prerequisite. Is that right?
Mr Bazudnoud? Mark?
Through the chair, that is correct.
I'll move
Councillor
the
Edwards.
recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Edwards has moved the recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Sullivan. Would anyone like to speak to the motion? Councillors, all in favour? Against?
Mr Mayor, I was just wondering if you wanted the opportunity for any potential objectors.
Councillors, would anyone like to speak against the motion?
I would just like to, sorry, Mr Mayor, I was looking at point 2, the extension of 11:59. When listening to some of the speakers, they said that the EPA had said 11 o'clock was reasonable. I was just wanting to possibly get point 2 removed there. The 6 proposed light poles may be left on until 11:59.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Because we're heading into debate.
Yep. So, councillors, we have a motion that's been moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Sullivan. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Any dissent?
Yeah, I'll speak against it if it means I have to do that too.
Okay, so the motion's been moved by Councillor Edwards. Councillor Edwards, I'll invite you to speak in favour of the motion.
Yeah, certainly, Mr Mayor. I'll just hit some key points. This area's been operated for 50 years. It has existing use rights. Excuse me. It's previously been approved by VCAT. Economically viability, those sorts of things all come into the argument with the organisation's ability to put the towers up. Obviously, when they got a permit, if they had the money, they would have done it back then. And there are some additional benefits to this permit which don't exist. For example, conditions on soil. There are no requirements in our shire actually that I'm aware of when you bring soil on and do major earthworks. We saw that in the main street of Bacchus Marsh when that was raised. So I think this now requires an organisation to do that, so I see it as a added benefit. Excuse me for my croaky voice.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Berry.
Yeah, I'd just mainly like to speak on most of the motion. Motion looks okay, but on point 2, I heard in the conversations that the EPA said 11 p.m. was a reasonable time to leave lights on. I would like to see point 2 removed from the motion. I think that, that some of these events are on a Sunday night, that 11 o'clock is a reasonable time to shut off lights and, yeah, so that was just my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. As a seconder... Yes?
Of officers, it's been mentioned that the EPA have said 11 o'clock is appropriate. Have officers seen anything that actually supports this, or there's no evidence from the EPA? What have the EPA actually said?
Mark?
So through the chair, there was no referral to the EPA because we were only considering the light, not the noise. So there was no. So that's why we've got the conditions regarding making sure the light does not spill on to any adjacent property. So that would address any time of the day, so any nighttime hours.
No, the councillors are in debate at the moment. Councillor Sullivan as a seconder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I guess we have to refer back to what this application is for, and that is the development of 6 light poles, earthwork and extension of operating hours. And I understand the concern of locals about noise and the like, but that's not what this application is before us. I think the matter of use on that site was determined by the appeal taken out in 2006, which defined the rights that this operation had, and that we clearly indicated that the use rights remain intact and were quite extensive, if my memory is correct, because the former Shire didn't sort of have any conditions on it. It was basically just a use. And so VCAT determined that back in 2006, and that's really where we're at. I'd also point out that this is a conditional permit. There are 10 conditions on it which have to be complied with in order for this this development to remain valid going forward. So I think we have to sort of give cognizance of that. I think our officers have tried to get a balance here, and I understand the concern of the residents. It's been something that's has occurred over a number of years, but we have to get back to what this application is, and it is just for the development and no use or anything like that. So I would ask Council to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Before we go to a vote or invite Councillor Edwards to close, is there any other councillors who wish to speak on the matter? No? Councillor Edwards? Yes, Councillor Tatchell.
This is one of those unfortunate things that when you're in the peri-urban where you have growth, isn't it? And previous decisions and existing use have been well established and they've been tested a number of times. And it's really complex when a planning item comes in and it's consolidated by what the item is, and that is to put some lights in Mercy and basically have a time extension for when it removes. So all these things are really complex. So I sympathise with people who live there, but the reality is that I think we've seen over the last 20 or 30 years a lot of areas that, you know, in hindsight, had we known that people were going to live there, we may have been in a different position. And we also have to be mindful of the invisible fence that separates the two shires, or the council of Ballarat and ourselves. So in relative terms, I quite agree with Councillor Sullivan in terms of you can only deal with what's in front of you. And the other issue, of course, there's been a lot of allegations about misconduct, but ultimately that's not our... We're not here to judge people. We have to take people at their word. And I know, and we all know, we've been here long enough to know that it doesn't always work out that way, but we are not judge and jury, and we can't assume that people do the wrong thing or because somebody does. Even if there might be, with all probability, that's not our role. Our role is purely a planning role. So whilst I sympathise with the objectors on this particular item, the fact is that this item is a planning item that's come to council that we deal with unemotionally, practically, and with the information that's put in front of us. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tatchell. Any other councillors wish to speak on the matter? Councillor Edwards, I'll just invite you to close the debate.
Yeah, I'll keep it pretty short. I think my fellow councillors have said it quite well. The reality is we're always going to get these tensions in growing areas, whether it be aircraft, like we see Moorabbin Airport and these other airports, and people have issues with noise as the population grows. But that doesn't remove the right for people to carry out activities they've carried out for 50 years. As far as the lighting goes, additional lights, we know that they were approved, and as we carry out these activities over 50 years, technology changes, and there's always going to be a requirement to upgrade facilities, for things like safety and security and those sort of aspects. So I think in this case, based on the longevity of this facility and the fact that it probably does need to be upgraded and made more safe, Therefore, I think it's a good report by officers and the recommendation is supported.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. So, councillors, we have a motion to support the recommendation by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Sullivan. All in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Councillors, we'll move on to item 12.2, which is building and works comprising additional shops and offices, alteration of access to a road in a transport zone, display of signage and a reduction of car parking, 72 spaces at 176 Main Street, Bacchus Marsh. Councillors, we have two registered speakers on this item. I believe Mr Woodrow Wu is with us. Mr Woodrow, I invite you to take the table and please feel free to press the button. And you have 3 minutes to address councillors. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank our Mayor, councillors and council officers for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name's Woodrow Wu and I live at 15 Morven Road in Darley, and my position is that I object to the planning application PA 2021272, and the reason for my objections are as follows. Unsafe access for patients. The proposal removes safe pedestrian access to the Elms Family Medical Centre. Patients will have to use a secluded 70-metre long, 2-metre wide utility walkway to reach the clinic. This corridor is used to service the back of the main street shops and cannot be reached from within the main shopping centre. Loss of patient parking. The proposal leaves 0 patient car parks in front of the medical centre. Currently there are 24 car parks in front of the clinic. The proposal reduces this to 15 spaces and patients will not be permitted to use these car parks. Loss of emergency service access. The proposal removes existing ambulance access to the medical centre. Ambulances will not be able to stop in front of the clinic to pick up patients needing hospital transfer. Ambulances may also have difficulty locating the clinic as the clinic loses all public fronting exposure from Main Street. Disadvantaging the mobility impaired. The proposal means that patients who would normally be dropped off at the clinic entrance by car or taxi will no longer be able to do so due to changes to vehicle access. Loss of amenity. The proposal encloses the open space in front of the clinic and reduces its size by over 50%. It places a loading dock at the entrance of the clinic, which will be unattractive and dangerous. The cul-de-sac presents opportunities for mess, vandalism, crime and antisocial behaviour due to its reduced public visibility. Unsafe and impractical roadway. The proposal creates a 2-way single-lane thoroughfare as the only vehicle access to the new cul-de-sac. The roadway is narrow and has poor visibility due to a bend. Sharing this roadway would be Australia Post, retail delivery trucks and rubbish collection services. Worsening CBD traffic flow. The proposal removes the only egress point for traffic to Main Street. All shopping centre traffic will be diverted to Bennett Street and Young Street. The proposed exit to Gell Street only allows traffic to join Bennett Street. Worsening CBD parking availability. The proposal asks to be exempt from providing the additional car parks needed to comply with planning requirements. There already exists a shortage of car parks in the CBD of Bacchus Marsh. Every morning, 25 car parks are chained off at the Main Street entrance to save them for availability later in the day. In summary, the proposal will cause disadvantage to patients of the Elms Family Medical Centre due to issues of safety, access, parking, visibility and amenity. It will disadvantage users of the Bacchus Marsh CBD by worsening traffic flow and diminishing parking availability. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr Wu. Councillors, do you have any questions for Dr Wu? Councillor Berry?
Dr Wu, when you mentioned that the car parks on the entrance from Main Street, is it get blocked off to say,
yes.
Is that?
Every morning they're chained off.
So who's doing that? Who's blocking off?
The shopping centre.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillors, any other questions for Dr Wu? No? Thank you very much for your time, Dr Wu. We have another speaker. Yep. Mr Richard Bradfield is also registered to speak to this item. I believe Mr Bradfield is joining us online.
Hi.
Mr Bradfield,
Yes.
we can
Glad
hear
to be here.
We can, just hang on a moment, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
Yep. Yes, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but we can't see you, so we just need to see you. Just a moment, please.
I'll turn my video. I'll stop.
It's a roll approach, normally it's the other way.
Not me. I don't think you really want to see me.
Okay, well, if everyone's happy to continue, Mr Bradfield, we'll let you address the councillors. You have 3 minutes, after which we may ask you questions. Can you hear us, Mr Bradfield?
Okay, well, actually, I've got very little to say because Dr. Wu said it all. Because
is there anything further you'd like to add, Mr Bradfield?
I think he seconded Dr. Wu.
Okay.
Dr. Wu said it all, and you know, we're older patients. We're, you know, in our late 70s, and we need to have that access there. I mean, it's convenient. We can drop off as dedicated parking spaces for people visiting the Elms Clinic, and you know, it's just you know, it'd be a shame. I don't know what's going to happen if that Elms have to move or something like that, because you know, and there's a lot of patients like us, older people that been going to that clinic, you know, for over 10 years, and you know, it's just going to be very difficult if things are changed.
Thank you, Mr Bradfield. Councillors, any questions for Mr Bradfield? No. Thank you very much for attending tonight, Mr Bradfield.
Okay, no worries. Thanks.
Councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers before you go regarding the report. Do I have a councillor to move? Move, Councillor.
I'll move the recommendation to refuse the application, Mr Mayor.
I'll second it.
Seconded, Councillor Dudzik. Would anyone like to speak in favour of the...
I just have a question.
Councillor Sullivan has a question.
Although this is to advise VCAT that council does not support the application, what will be the provision at VCAT if we will be formulating potential conditions if VCAT is of mind to issue this? We have to have our position. So is that something that the officers will do in due course or not?
Mr Bazoodoud or Mark?
So through the chair, as required by VCAT, 10 days before the hearing, draft conditions need to be circulated, but it'd be appropriate just to bring it back to OMC or DAC committee for review of those conditions.
Thank you. So, councillors, we have Councillor Edwards has moved the recommendation and Councillor Dudzik has seconded. All in favour? I declare the motion carried. Thank you. So, Mr. Wu, Dr. Wu, that means it has been refused, and we'll be opposing it at VCAT. So, thank you for your attendance, and feel free to leave. Yeah, unless you want to stay, you're welcome to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Well, I think that's the most speakers we've had in the last 2.5 years. Maybe. So, councillors, we'll move to item 13, which is community strengthening reports. And item 13.1, first report is the Masons Lane Reserve Master Plan. Councillors, again, you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding the report. Do I have a councillor who wishes to move the recommendation? Move Councillor Berry. Seconded. Councillor Tatchell. Any dissent? Councillors, all in favour? I declare the motion carried. Item 13.2 is nominations for the Public Art Advisory Committee. Again, councillors, there is a recommendation before you regarding this item. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation? Move Councillor Minari. Seconded, Councillor Tatchell. Councillor, any dissent? All in favour? Declare the motion carried. Item 13.3 is the March 2023 Community Grant Recommendations. Again, councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding this report. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation? Councillor Tatchell, seconded Councillor Edwards. Do I have any dissent or anyone would like to speak to the motion? No? Councillors, all in favour? Declare the motion carried. Councillors, item 13.4 is the Community Asset Committee reports. Again, you have a recommendation before you. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation? Move Councillor Sullivan, seconded Councillor Minari. Any dissent? All in favour? Declare the motion carried. Councillors, we'll move to item 14, and item 14.1 is the Moorabool Shire Council 21 to 25 Council Plan, and it's a progress report for Year 2, Quarter 3, March 2023. We have a recommendation in your papers regarding the report. Do I have a councillor to move?
I would move the recommendation, Mr Mayor, with a question, if I may.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan.
Just on pages 246, 243, 244, 246 and 254, perhaps someone could explain the numbers. We've got percentage completed and target, and they sort of just don't seem to align. So I'll direct you to perhaps one that was a bit more obvious. On page 244 of our documents is completed 100, target 75%. So what, am I misreading it, or it just seems they don't, if you've got 100% you completed it, how can you target 75? There's a few other anomalies like that as well.
Caroline?
Thank you, Mr Sullivan. Could you specify which item you're referring to in particular?
Okay. There's sort of one on page 243 of our document. 40%, say for argument's sake, under 5.4, commence construction of regional bowl facility. You've got percentage completed 40% almost year to date, and then the target is 90%. So I'm just trying to get to reconcile what those figures actually mean in the sense of the project. And it's replicated on, say, our part 244, where you've got seek funding for stage 3 Bacchus Marsh Racecourse Reserve, 100% completed, 75% target. How does that, just trying to reconcile figures, that's all.
I might have to pass that on to Phil, sorry.
If you want to take it on notice, that's fine. But
I'll answer that through you, Mr Mayor. So the percentage completed is the physical status of the project, so how far through it's either completed on the ground or if it's a strategy, how far along it is. And the target is what was outlined at the start of the year, where we thought we'd be at this point of the year. So if there's a mismatch, they're either one's ahead or one's behind, depending on how it marries up.
So the one on page, the next one over, where it's got review and update draft urban design guidelines, it's 40% complete, 100% target. So what you're saying, it should be at 100 now, it's not.
Yeah, that's right. That would be behind.
Okay, that's all right. I was trying to reconcile figures there, Mr Mayor, and I was getting myself confused.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. So we have the motion moved by Councillor Sullivan, seconded Councillor Tatchell. Any dissent? Councillors, all in favour? Declare the motion carried. Item 14.2 is the Audit and Risk Advisory Committee of Council reports. Councillors, again, you have a recommendation in your papers. Would I have a councillor who would like to move the recommendation?
Happy to move.
Move Councillor Dudzik. Seconded Councillor Perry. Any dissent? All in favour? Motion carried. Item 14.3 is the 2017 to 2021 Moorabool Shire Council Plan Outstanding Actions Progress Report, March 2023. Again, we have recommendations in the report. Councillors, do I have someone to move the recommendation? Councillor Tatchell, second. Councillor Sullivan, any dissent? All in favour? Item 14.4 is the March 2023 quarterly financial report. Again, councillors, we have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding this report.
So moved.
Councillor moved. Councillor Dudzik, second. Councillor Minari. Any dissent? 14.4 is the March 2023 quarterly financial report. Yep.
Oh. You've got a 14.4. Oh, that's funny.
There's a conspiracy.
Obviously, I didn't agree.
It's not in the index, but it's in the document. Yeah, it's not in an index. You have an index, but that's how it's listed.
Okay. So it's in the attachments but not in the index.
It's in the attachments but not in the index.
So, councillors, 14.4 is the March 2023 quarterly financial report. Sorry, who moved that motion? Councillor Dudzik. Seconded Councillor Minari. Any dissent? All in favour? Motion carried.
Yeah, probably.
Councillors, item 15 is the Community Assets and Infrastructure Reports, and item 15.1 is the Maroochydore Environment and Sustainability Advisory Committee draft terms of reference. Councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding the report.
I
think I saw you first, Councillor Dudzik.
I would like to move to defer that item because I myself and I know other councillors have been contacted by that group identifying some issues with this report, and I think that we need to hear in full their concerns, and it needs to come back to a future meeting because there's big differences in what the community is saying to what's in the report.
So, councillors, we have a motion to defer moved by Councillor Dudzik. Do we have a seconder? A question, Councillor Minari? Councillor Minari?
Thank you. Just in the report, when did the Central Ward name turn to Bunjil? Is that because it's listed in the community member representatives, and usually it would be Woodlands, Central, East and West.
I think that was the first
Mr. CEO.
Guys, that's the current membership, which is done all of that set up.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, that would have been in the previous terms of reference, so that would have been the list of of representatives in the previous terms.
Thank you.
So we have a motion moved by Councillor Dudzik, seconded.
I've got a question. Yeah. We didn't go to public consultation for the updated terms of reference, did we?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
No,
That's okay.
Seconded Councillor Berry.
I'd like to add an amendment to that if
Yep.
councillors would agree. Just in relation to that, because of the little bit of confusion from the public and the groups that were on it and weren't on it, can I also recommend that we put it out for public exhibition? Is that normally for 2 weeks? 4 weeks?
We can ask for 4. I'll include out for public consultation for 4 weeks.
So we have a motion to defer moved by Councillor Dudzik, and the draft terms of reference are put out for public exhibition for 4 weeks to enable further consultation. So it's been seconded by Councillor Edwards. Any dissent? Councillor Berry.
Just a question. Oh, I have a question, if I may.
Question, Councillor Sullivan.
Does this delay prejudice this committee going forward? That's all.
Mr. CEO.
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, it'll just function as previously been functioning.
Okay. And Mr. CEO.
Can I just ask a question? If we're deferring the item and putting on public exhibition, is that the appropriate course? Is it one or the other?
Councillor Tatchell.
Just to be clear, when we defer something, it should come back exactly the same. So are we requesting a different motion?
I suppose we're deferring items.
Well, far be from me to stick to the rules, but okay. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks for that clarification. So the motion to defer is moved by Councillor Dudzik, seconded by Councillor Berry, and as Councillor Sullivan's pointed out, what happens in that period if it's been deferred is subject to further discussion. So we have a motion to defer moved and seconded.
Point of order on that. I believe we can move a motion to defer it to allow it to go to public consultation. I'll not seek advice from governance.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So governance will seek advice on that. Councillor Edwards, if you...
Probably my fault, Mr Mayor, for not raising this a little bit earlier, but anyway.
I'll sing.
Councillor Tatchell.
Even if it goes to public consultation, I thought under our current rules, and I may be proven correct or incorrect, that if we put a deferral in on a particular recommendation, well, I realise it's not a motion. I realise it's not a motion, but if it goes to public consultation and comes back with a different recommendation, that means that it hasn't been dealt with.
Yeah. So it's an interesting point you raise. If there was concerns about the terms of reference and it comes back with a different terms of reference, okay.
I'm suggesting we do a new motion that does exactly what Councillor Dudzik wants. So that becomes the, the motion, you put an alternate motion in, and then that would cover everything off it. It doesn't matter how it comes back.
Thank you. Councillor Dudzik?
Is it possible I can change the motion to defer the item to allow for further consultation and an altered report to return to council? Or an updated report to come back to council?
Just take that a word
Okay, do you want to turn your mic on so everyone can hear that? Sorry.
Through the chair. So council may defer an item until another meeting if further consideration or clarification is required prior to a decision being made. The motion to defer an item is substantive motion and may be debated.
Okay, so Councillor Tatchell?
That's what we generally do. If someone wants a deferral, we'll debate it as to whether it's worthy of deferral.
Okay.
It still brings back to the problem that we have a report, a recommendation. We haven't got a motion yet, but there's some pieces missing from the report that need to go back, and it has to go to public consultation, which means that it could be altered considerably because the report will have to alter to recognise the public consultation as part of the report, which means it'll require a new motion.
Could I possibly flag that I might do an alternative motion in urgent business for this matter? Would that help?
Well, at the moment, I have to deal with the motion in front of us, and the motion has been put up to defer, which has been moved and seconded.
I would move an amendment to the motion, Mr Mayor.
And your amendment is?
The amendment would be to change it to go to public consultation for 4 weeks and bring back a further report to council.
I'll accept that amendment.
It's a new motion.
No,
It's come from Councillor Edwards now, so it's a new motion.
Me.
It's a very...
So Councillor Dudzik has moved to defer. Read that out again, please, Councillor Edwards, for clarity.
I've moved to amend it to the following: to go to public exposition for 4 weeks and bring back a further report to council.
And Councillor Dudzik has accepted the amendment.
I think it's been considerably altered.
I'm happy to
So-
second or accept whatever is required.
Can't second, you're the mover.
Yeah.
I will second councillor Edwards' amendment.
Well done, yes.
Yay.
So, councillors, all in favour of the amendment? Motion's carried.
Because he is the standard.
So now the amendment becomes the motion, which is to defer with that amendment. It's a new motion that's been moved by councillor Edwards, seconded by
I second the amendment.
councillor Sullivan. Any dissent? All in favour?
Can we make sure that all the current members of that committee are advised of the contents of this report or what was proposed so that they will get the opportunity to provide feedback?
Can I also just say that the
Councillor
current
Berry.
members that the council have as part of this report are not inclusive of the current members that are sitting on the committee now. Do you get that? Yeah.
Mr Mayor, if I may, I
I've
think...
got notes.
Mr Sullivan? Councillor Sullivan?
Could I say that basically this is to canvass the wider community rather than just the committee members that currently exist. So we're not just seeking the input from, as I would read it, from the current membership, but the wider community as well. That's really, I think that's the intent of Councillor Edwards' alternate motion.
Thank you, councillor Sullivan.
You don't advise the CEO's process. We just dealt with that in the car way. They just all went through perfectly.
Thank you, councillor Tatchell. Item 15.2 is a notice of motion of Werribee River. Again, councillors, in front of you, you have a recommendation in the papers. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation?
I would like to, because of all the confusion in the last one, just if, with the recommendation, can we add a point of the council notes this report and we'll come back to council with a further report in 6 months, because the reason, that's the only wording, but the reason is that the EPA and Melbourne Water, not included in this motion, have mentioned some anomalies on the report. So just to add that the recommendation be that council notes this report and comes back with a further report in 6 months on the same.
So you're moving to amend the motion?
Yes, thank you.
So that's been moved by councillor Berry?
Yep.
Yep. So, councillors, do we have a seconder for councillor Berry's amended motion? Seconder, councillor Tatchell. Any dissent? All in favour? Motion carried.
So I just note, when we make a motion, it's not a motion until the recommendation has been turned into a motion. So if a council wants to make a motion or change a motion or amend a motion, that becomes the motion, not the recommendation. So that, when you don't have to fear, you don't have to put it out there. You just put your amendment in as part of that motion.
Yep.
And that'll save you a lot of confusion.
Yeah, the confusion I think was from the prior one, so I thought I'd better just throw that in.
Thank you, councillor Tatchell. Item 15.3 is the notice of motion for the Recreation Reserve at Riverbend Drive, Darley. Again, councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers.
I'll move that recommendation as motion.
Moved councillor Edwards. Seconded councillor Sullivan. Any dissent? All in favour? Declare the motion carried. Councillors, we'll now move to other reports. Item 16, which is listed in the agenda, of which there are none. Item 17 is notices of motion, of which we have one. Notice of motion, facility improvements at Bacchus Marsh BMX Club. Councillors, you have a recommendation in the papers before you regarding the report.
This is a bit pedantic. Why is 17 notice of motions and we just dealt with them notice of motions under 15.3? Why weren't they all in the same?
Through the chair, those were responses to previous notice of motions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They're still labelled notice of motion though, that's all.
Yeah.
No wonder we're confused.
So we notice a motion. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation? Put up by Councillor Edwards. Second.
I'm happy to second
Councillor
that.
Berry, any dissent? All in favour?
In favour. Just a question, is asphalt the appropriate thing or concrete? I'm just asking a question.
Mr CEO?
Just a question, I thought.
With the club, the issue they've had is all the public use of it, and asphalt appears to be what's used at some of the other big venues, so it's getting damaged on a regular basis. People with, racing cars and all sorts of stuff.
This would be hot mix stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillors, all in favour? Motion carried. Item 18 is notice of rescission, of which we have none, so we'll move to the next agenda item. Item 19 is the Mayor's report. Councillor, you have a copy of my report in your papers before you to receive it. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation? Move Councillor Minari, second Councillor Berry. All in favour? Carried. Councillors, the next item on the agenda is item 20, the councillor's report. We'll move around the table, starting with Councillor Sullivan on my left.
No councillor reports at this stage.
Councillor Minari.
I'll be super quick. I attended the CWA Craft Fair and Exhibition launch, and that was delightful. Delightful. Being I used to be a CWA member, so it was lovely. The flag raising ceremony on Ida Hobbit Day, Women in Business luncheon was also wonderful. A great day listening to some speakers and chatting to other women in business in the region. The Bacchus Marsh Rotary book launch, Moorabool's Healthy Hectares, which was it was great to see a bunch of people from all different groups getting behind that book to promote in the region. Oh, and Councillor Berry has it right here if anyone wants to have a look. And the Balan Chamber of Commerce Tourism Dinner. We heard from Catherine McKenzie, OAM, and caught up with a lot of locals there, which was great too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Minari. Councillor Tatchell.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I'll just speak briefly on the energy forum by Committee of Ballarat that we attended on Friday. I think it was Friday. I've just got to say that I think we need to be very careful when we agree to these forums. The Ballarat Energy is about our power lines, creating power for Ballarat and alternative energies for their benefit, to be the first city in Victoria, Australia, to run on renewable energies. Now, strictly speaking, we're going to be providing that through these wind turbines and solar farms and whatever else happens. So my concern is that it's all right for Ballarat to say that they're doing it. They're not dealing with the consequences of these problems. And I have to say the two speakers that were there to talk about how that energy was going to be produced were both on different planes. And one who obviously is paid by government to sell the process in Stuart Benjamin. He is a fanatic of these power lines and insisting that they go through for the benefit of country Victoria, which in effect the power goes back to Melbourne. But the guy from AusNet, he was a little bit more circumspect. He said that we've got to use existing facilities and explore better ways of using batteries in rural areas, which is something we haven't heard before. And I have to say I was a bit sceptical. And the third speaker was from CAPS and explained the difficulties of people that are struggling to pay electricity bills at the bottom end, and I understand that. But I don't think it was relevant to the energy event. But my concern is that if we continue to appear to support the Committee of Ballarat on this project, it's actually not in line with what we're doing at Moorabool to protect our farmers and protect our environment. So there wasn't an opportunity, because it was all the questions that you could ask were all given to particular people that were related to the people on the stage, which is very disappointing. It doesn't have to be that way. And they had a lot of young students there who would have no understanding of the ramifications to Moorabool in terms of these power lines. So I think we need to have or at least have a meeting with them and say, this is where we stand, and be careful not to include us in your brochures or your, what you're selling as Ballarat, that Moorabool supports it, because I'm not totally convinced that we do. So that's
Yep.
unusual report, but anyhow, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for attending, Councillor Thatcher. Were other neighbouring LGAs invited?
They didn't turn up.
Okay.
But I'll tell you this, when we arrived, there was no lighting. They used candles to dramatically show what would happen if we didn't support the power lines, that there'd be no power. And, I did mention that was slightly moronic, because you can just go and turn the switch on. But if we continue to do this power line thing and put all of the power into Melbourne, by the time we get it back, nothing might happen at the switch end.
Okay.
Which
Councillor
Mr.
Sullivan?
Corbyn denied. But, sorry.
I was just going to say, in response to Councillor Tatchell's, the lights going out, did they actually go and cook in the camp oven outside, or not when you had lunch?
They had a gas burner, and and we're at the Mercury. I mean, they'd be chewing up more power than Apollo 11, and there's more lights going on there than the MCG. But where we were doing it by candlelight, which gave a couple of local members a good opportunity to sneak out just after the initial whatever. And
you can name names here, all being confidence.
Not that I named anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Tatchell. Councillor Dudzik?
Should we be writing a letter to make it clear that we actually don't support that?
We'll take that one on notice, I think, Mr. CEO, because we were just invited to a forum. We were by going, we weren't committing to supporting anything. It was an information session.
We were misled.
Yeah. Councillor Berry, any
Yes, thank you, Mr
business?
Mayor. On Friday, May the 5th, 12 noon, I attended the CWA Art and Craft Fair and Exhibition at the Bacchus Marsh Town Hall, along with Councillor Minari. Members from various CWA groups across the region displayed their crafts. They are looking at starting up a Gordon branch once again if anyone is interested. Tuesday the 9th of May, I attended once again the annual general meeting at St Bernard's Parish Hall in Bacchus Marsh. It is always a pleasure to hear about the volunteering great work this group does. I listened to how the neighbourhood Place and Soul Food volunteers not only provide food and financial help to those that need it, they provide a warm welcome, understanding ear and fellowship. Recently at a Soul Food session, people arrived at St Andrews for lunch. There was a large van parked outside from which volunteers were offering Soul Food guests a set of new clothing for free. The Neighbourhood Place and Soul Food are most grateful for the many donations they receive. The Soul Food program, incorporated in Bacchus Marsh, in 2020 provided 2,850 meals for the year. In 2021, provided 4,000 meals for the year. In 2022, provided 6,100 meals for the year. For this year so far, they're heading towards a higher figure. They welcome any new volunteers as well. So there's some unreal figures considering they're going up by so much every year, and it's not looking good for future years, and they do some great work. Friday, May 12th, I attended the Peri-Urban Council's Victoria Board meeting in Melbourne. It was disappointing to hear that there was no funding available for Moorabool Shire to apply for our out of the new Growing Regions Fund because of changed boundaries being part of the criteria. So we miss out on our pool for another year, again, hopefully next year. Wednesday, May 24th, 10 a.m, I attended the Women in Business lunch event held at Bacchus Marsh Public Hall with Councillor Dudzik, Councillor Minari and Councillor Ward, as well organised and run by Council. It was great to hear local lady Nikki Davies speak on her new business, Grown Not Flown, and the award she has received. Thursday, the 25th of May at 10 a.m, I attended Bacchus Marsh Rotary launch of the publication, which I showed to you before, Mirrabul Healthy Hectares, at the CWA rooms in Darley with Councillor Minari. This copy has been put together by people who are volunteers in land care groups and are very passionate about the environment. I've actually read the book. It's worthwhile for any new person coming in to want to start up a hobby farm, so they learn about the land before they take on that land and understand the difficulties in looking after land. It's a very good publication, so if anybody wants to borrow it, I can get you one for $30 if you like. Friday the 26th of May, 1:30 p.m, I attended the ministerial visit at the West Manly Early Years Hub, expecting Minister Stitt, hoping to talk to her about this and the environment, but we got the Premier instead. Wednesday the 31st of May, 10 a.m, I attended the Reconciliation Week event, Welcome to Country and Smoking Ceremony, Wadawurrung in Balan. Barry Gilson, poet and amazing singing he demonstrated on the day. Monday, June 5th, I attended Mirrabul Shire Council's Tourism Events Forum at Cryle Castle. I'm looking forward to hearing more on what can be beneficial for our Shire re-Commonwealth Games in 2026. I'd just like to finish off with, I'd like to send out a big, very big thank you to the community around Mirrabul Shire who put their boots out, so football boots out for Dallas, who passed away in Kyneton playing for Castlemaine. He is a relative of mine. There's been great support from right across the football fraternity, and in our Shire I was just gobsmacked that they did the same. And he will be laid to rest this Friday in Castlemaine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Berry, and our heartfelt sympathy on the passing of Dallas. Councillor Dudzik.
I also attended the CWA Art and Craft exhibition, which was very good. Some exceptional work by a lot of ladies. On the 17th of May, I attended the Ida Hobbit flag raising, and I'd just like to thank all the council staff for the work and effort that went into preparing that event. You did very well, so thank you very much. I think it was very well done. On the 24th of May, I attended the Women in Business lunch, and I think that was fantastic, and I look forward to next year's event, and I hope to see lots more local women getting to share their stories at these events. I attended the Reconciliation Week flag raising in Bacchus Marsh, which was a great event as always, so well done to all the council staff that were involved in putting that together. On the 3rd of June, I attended the Peter Carey Short Story Awards and Mirrabul Young Writers Awards at the Bacchus Marsh Library. And I was actually amazed at how many people attended this event. It was a couple of hundred people. There was actually 688 entries in the Mirrabul Young Writers Awards. So that's 688 kids that have written stories. And I think that's an incredible achievement and something that young people can really be proud of, especially when everyone's on their iPads all the time. There were also 400 entries into the Peter Carey Awards right across Australia. But I was most impressed really by the little kids with their stories from all the different schools that are involved. I was amazed really by the library staff, as well as there's some volunteers that organised that, and a lady called Jem Tiley Miller. She speaks so well, she's so passionate, made reading fun, and I was just amazed. And there was also a gentleman called Wayne Marshall, and it was fantastic to see how involved, and these are volunteers that are involved in organising these awards, and they would have read all these 688 stories and another 400, which is pretty amazing. And there was a person that works for council, someone called Christy Sakata, I think it is, and she was incredible as well. So well done to all the people that put that together, and it's good to see something that's not sporting being celebrated.
Thank you, Councillor Dudzik. Councillor Edwards.
Wow, everyone's been pretty busy. I don't have a lot to report. I did attend the opening of the Early Years Hub where I sat out the front and waved everybody inside, and it was a really good day. But it was great to see lots of people inside there. Obviously security was strong, but that's okay.
Did you not get in?
I wouldn't let him in either.
It's like item 14, it disappeared from... No, it's all right. But I do want to raise something with the councillors that's probably a little bit more serious, and that's the letter we received back from the Department of Transport in relation to the proposed future Parwin station. And the disappointment that I have... First, they can't spell Bacchus Marsh, but that's all right. We'll work out that later. But the fact is that they're saying that they wouldn't support it, and the reasons for not supporting is that it's part of the Parliament Employment Precinct study. Well, let's be honest, we weren't actually worried about the Parliament Employment study, we were more worried about the residential side of it. Secondly, they're saying that it would impact the users further up the track, so in other words, Ballarat, it might extend their time. We weren't asking for them to put it in today. Their other reason was that it was less than 5 kilometres. It's a shame they didn't consider those things when they built Cobblebank, because that was forward thinking, wasn't it, at the time, I remember, even when there was no houses there, but there was a racetrack. So I'll leave that to your own assumption. So I was going to raise that in urgent business and ask that we write back, but I think that after talking to officers, they're fully aware of how disappointed we are, and they will take the time to inform the state government of where they actually got it wrong in the letter, and then we'll have another go at trying to get that in, because I think it's important for our future planning for our communities that we are considering the things that we do need 10 or 15 or 20 years down the track. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillors, item 21 is urgent business, and we have moved and seconder for the councillor reports. So move Councillor Sullivan, seconded Councillor Minari. All in favour? Carried. Item 21 is urgent business. Councillors, we have received several items of urgent business for this meeting. Councillor Berry, your item was in first. So Councillor Berry has put in an item for a speed limit reduction in Gisborne Road, Darley. So we actually have to vote to accept urgent business. Could I have someone move that? Councillor Tatchell. Seconded Councillor Edwards. All in favour? Councillor Berry, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm looking for a motion to reduce the speed limit reduction in Gisborne Road, Darley. You've got the motion in front of you. I have observed many more tip trucks and B-doubles entering and leaving the sand mines on Gisborne Road, Darley. Do you want me to read all this out, or do they have to? Are we accepting everybody's?
No, this is specifically yours, Councillor Berry.
Yeah.
So you can speak on it and then move the motion.
So that's right. Some are picking up speed when travelling down the hill into the towards the 60 kilometre zone, way too fast, and that is just this side of Lerderder Gorge Road. I myself saw a near miss when I went out to have a look at the number of trucks that seem to be a load more trucks travelling out into the mines there. Currently the 60, as I said, commences just before the Lerderder Gorge Road. There have been other residents who raised this with me. That's the reason why I went out there, and they're coming that have had near misses also, because the trucks, where the 60 kilometre zone starts, comes around a bend, 60 kilometre zone hits them, and the trucks are unable to reduce much at all in a short period. So hence those people coming out of Lerderder Gorge Road are being affected and very nervous about the truck situation. If we reduce the speed limit to 60 kilometres near the Barrow Group Quarries, which is a little bit further up Gisborne Road. It will allow all trucks to be at a reduced speed of 60 k's per hour by the time they reach the Lurdu Gorge Road area. So the motion there is that Council write to Vic Roads requesting a reduction of speed limit zones on Gisborne Road, Darley in both directions. Prior to Bonnievale, number 2, prior to Bonnievale Road mine entry, the speed limit to be lowered from 100 to 80, and then at the Barrow Group Quarries 3, the speed limit to be lowered from 80 to 60.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. So that's been moved by Councillor Berry. Would someone care to second that?
Question of Councillor Thatcher, if I may. If you were going both ways, going up the hill with the truck, being 60 k's, you're not going to be able to accelerate, are you? You're going to drop speed coming out of the town.
If you load it, yeah. You wouldn't be able to.
It currently is 60 going out at that same spot and coming down at that same spot. It currently
You want to move it up the hill, yeah?
Yeah, and then it gets to 80, a little bit up the hill.
You'd be lucky to get the truck to do 80 because where they start.
Yeah, going
That's my point. I actually agree with you. It's a very unsafe intersection. I'm just concerned that we'll create a worse problem going up the hill. People want to overtake because the truck, if they've got to sit on 60 all the way up, halfway up the hill, there's no way they're going to accelerate, and people are going to get the 80 zone and they're just going to be flashing past them.
And all trucks are different. Some trucks will have more power than others.
There's the double lane going up, coming down it's the single lane. Yeah.
It's all right.
I'm happy to second.
Seconded, Councillor Dudzik. Councillors, any dissent? No. All in favour? Motion's carried.
Thank you.
We have a second item of urgent business from Councillor Sullivan. Would you like to speak on it briefly and we vote to accept it? Or?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Basically, this is also to do with seeking reduction in speed. This is an incident that Clark said there a few weeks ago, so it's not unlike Councillor Berry's, but not quite as prescriptive. So I'd just like to be admitted to urgent business.
Councillors, moved Councillor Minari, second Councillor Tatchell. All in favour? Carried. So, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As I just noted, around all that discussion about ground.
Councillor Sullivan, sorry, can you turn your mic on?
Thought I'd get by. There a few weeks ago, there was an accident and sadly someone lost their life in a fatality just on that stretch of road. So my motion is that council write to, is it regional roads or Vic roads, or are they interchangeable? That'll do. Regional, are they? Well, whoever, I might leave that blank. Requesting that a review of the speed limit along the Ballarat-Dalesford Road in proximity to the Catholic Church at Clarks Hill be undertaken. So that's my motion, just to have it reviewed. So thank you.
Moved Councillor Sullivan, second Councillor Minari. Any dissent? All in favour? Motion's carried. Councillors, the other item of business for urgent business was mine, but I understand after further discussions I don't need to move this as a notice of motion. So, Mr CEO, what I wanted to request was I recently attended on the Sunday the 21st of May the 40th anniversary celebrations of the Bacchus Marsh SES, and to celebrate the occasion they have released a book and it's called Lost in the Gorge and Other Emergencies. It's a fantastic publication that's been put together by one of their volunteers, Lynn Purcell. So I just wanted Council, Mr CEO, to write to the Bacchus Marsh SES acknowledging their significant contribution to Mirrabel over the last 40 years. Outstanding volunteer-run organisation. Thank you.
Done, Mr Mayor.
So, councillors, we now, that's the completion of urgent business. No? Yep.
Mr Mayor, I've got a question.
Yep, Councillor Tatchell.
Mr Mayor, I think we need to have a meeting with the Courier in terms of when we have items that come up. It's not the first time it's happened. When we have items that come up on our agenda for council night, that they don't go and do full pages with commentary prior to the meeting. And because what was produced today in the Courier one, it was misleading. Two, it didn't reflect what we're actually looking at tonight. Council wasn't asked, because they would have been told, why don't you wait until the decision was made? And I think this is not the first time that's happened, where we're basically, the journalists are supposed to report on news, not create their own news. And that's happened 2 or 3 times when we've had items that have come into council that have a lot of objectives. So the Courier decides to do their own story on it, which I think not only influences other people, it also misrepresents whatever the item is that's in front of us. And that's happened more than once. So I think it's time that the Mayor or the CEO, in this case, probably usually the Mayor, has organised a meeting with, takes the CEO with him, of course, because Phil loves a road trip. Can't you tell he gets all excited? You see that smile on his face? It was a road trip. So, to go up there and have a talk to him about it, just say seriously that we're trying to do the right thing by people. We have a job to do. Your journalists are compromising that in a lot of ways, because a lot of the information that came out here tonight was directly from that article in the paper. And I just think that it's time we had a chat to them. They don't do it to the Ballarat Council. And I think it's time that we had a chat to them and said, well, how about, and you just talk to the editor and say, how about showing us a bit of respect, and we'll do the same in return. Otherwise, we'll bar your journalist.
Yep.
A lot of it did, yeah. I got the article on AAP this morning, and the article was written at 10 o'clock this morning.
Based on our published agenda.
Yeah, and published the opinion on what should happen.
Mm.
You know, yeah.
From people saying that? Or
Well, these people weren't mentioned, but I think they read the article as well.
Yep. Councillor Dudzik?
Is it possible our media people could actually email us the articles from the Courier? Because I actually can't read the Courier because I don't have a subscription, so I don't get to see any of the stories. And I know that I'm even mentioned in some of them, but I can't read them, so I don't know what's in them.
I've just got a nod from Carolyn over the back there, Councillor Dudzik, so that'll happen.
We'll organise that.
It's not the first time, Mr Mayor.
Yeah.
I know we've had some controversial issues here, and journalists have gone out and just written their opinion on it. And I don't think that's fair. And especially, it's different. This council's been here a while, and we understand the game and the rules. But when new councillors come in and there's items that come in, it can be very intimidating when the press is writing a story about something that hasn't happened yet, and putting their viewpoint onto both councillors and other people, when it doesn't even reflect what the recommendation or the actual item is. So I think we need to nip it in the bud, because otherwise I will.
Thank you. I'm happy to take Phil up for a road trip. Councillor Sullivan.
I think Councillor Tatchell's correct. I mean, the reality is what's on the business paper is just recommendations. Until council lands on its decision, that's all they are. But to speculate on what council may or may not do, I think is sort of, to some extent, a sort of almost like mob mentality, a bit of intimidation. But I think the suggestion that the Mayor and the CEO, I was going to say pay him a visit, that sounds a little bit sort of like Godfather stuff, doesn't it? But anyway.
Well, a recent example of Councillor Tatchell's frustrations was Ida Hobbit Day here, which was a wonderful day, and the online article in the Courier was that Council did not accept the 2 free flags offered by Michaela Settle. We didn't need to accept them because we had our own. So the headline was misleading.
Well, can I actually get back copies? Because, I actually don't know what any of these stories say, and I can only guess. I don't even know what you're talking about today. So, but can I actually be sent what they've said about council for the last month or two? Because I know that right article, but I don't know what's in them.
What we'll do, we'll add, because we currently add some articles in the councillor bulletins that you receive on Friday, so we'll add to that and make it more complete so that you get all of the coverage that's
Thank you,
happened.
Caroline.
The content, not just the link, the actual article.
Councillor Berry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. because, so the agenda's out on a Friday and those media get that, but what you're saying is
Well, they can legally do it, but they should morally. What we normally do, you would go and have a word to the editor of Ballarat, because we don't get a lot of media out of Ballarat in terms of the Courier, and when we do, it's usually bad, because we've got a local resident, a bit out of the council, that works as a journalist. Not that I'll name her, but it ain't the first time, but that's what happens when you get cheap journalists.
she is qualified.
Well, I didn't name her. But all I'm saying is if you go up and have a word to the editor would appreciate the fact that you go and talk to him, and you may find that there's a bit of balance there in terms of what the storylines will be out of the Courier consideration as one of the larger posts.
Thank you.
Is it still Eugene Duffy?
Yeah.
Councillors.
I don't think we should use names.
Yeah, councillors. Item 22 is the closed.
Before you move on, can I just ask a question?
Yes,
we
Councillor
sort of went
Sullivan.
around the official urgent business, but sometimes we go around the table. Some time ago we asked about, and council was developing a policy with respect to using CCT cameras on council-owned facilities. Where is that at the moment, please?
Celeste?
Chair, so that's coming to a briefing. I need to check what the date is, but it'll come back after, it's based on the feedback we've got from managers, and then we're looking to go to consultation after that.
Sorry, supplementary question. How long is this going to take? Because I would have thought it'd be pretty easy to just, if council's endorsement, we put them up.
Yeah, so through the chair, so we've still got to go through that public consultation period. So that's what we're coming back with. So we just want to get the endorsement of what we've actually put into the policy. Then we'll go out for consultation.
From council?
From council. And then we'll go out for consultation and then we'll look for adoption.
Okay, thank
So the draft CCTV policy is due to come up June, July.
Yeah.
June or July. So,
June or July.
Yeah. Yep. Councillor Tatchell.
So does that include the capacity to monitor it? Because that seems to be the trend. They put the cameras up, but there's no monitor.
I guess what predicated the whole thing at the start of the council was where those antisocial issues become apparent, not at every facility, and maybe it'll be one that will be at one place for a while and then move it around. But I think you're right, it does need to monitor, because we just need to make sure that council-owned and council-managed facilities are protected and not sort of destroyed by ne'er-do-wells.
Thank you. Councillors, if there's no further business, we'll move. We have 2 items to be considered in a closed session of the meeting. So, councillors, if I could have someone move Councillor Sullivan, second Councillor Berry, all in favour? Carried. Councillors, we're now in closed session. So item